show, the final score 31-15, as predicted. At halftime, that this game would get blown wide open. This season has been 15 games of torment for me personally. There won't be a 16th. I am not going to be doing post-game shows next week. If Freddie Kitchens is back, I won't do them next year. It is that simple. I don't have time, and my time is worth something, and my life is worth something. And I've done this before. This would not be new for me. By bringing in the wrong personnel as far as the coach is concerned, when it gets to a point, I'm done. I'm finished. When somebody is just so stupid that you just can't do anything or even comment on it. I mean, you're seeing the players just literally melting down. You're seeing Beckham melting down and Sheldon Richardson. These are veteran players who are melting down. I mean, you see a coach who scores a touchdown and goes for the 2 right away, which is against every conceivable, rational thought that you can imagine. He's a panicker. He's a dummy.
Other than Cyber can't fucking kick an extra point to save his motherfucking life.
Well, I mean, you can...
at some point, you got to go for 2 because you can't trust your kicker to do anything but miss.
I'm thinking that's why he went for 2 in the first place.
No, not really. What you're supposed to do is get the extra point, and then it's a one-possession game, and then you get the ball back. If you score, then you go for the 2. Every coach in the NFL does that, except for the moron that we've got. And that's the bottom line to that. Hi, Bronk. How you doing? And I see somebody else is getting in. Jake. Howdy, Jake.
Before we get too deep into this, can I for our Brownie fans who are in the chat room, let me explain how I feel about this. This entire season has been like the torture device from The Princess Bride, and we have Prince Humperdinck coming in, fucking Roger Goodell coming in and turning the goddamn thing to 50 every time. And Miracle Max is out of shit to fucking bring us back to life.
Yeah, but I mean, I can only say this, that fans have options on what they can do, and I have options on what I can do. If they bring this coach back, and then I'm finished. And if they bring him back, I may be finished for life because I don't want to deal with this. It's just, it takes up my whole Sunday. And, one thing we won't have to worry about is being the primetime game. So at least I won't have to worry about doing any of this at night, late at night. So that's been kind of taken care of for me. I think most of the fans feel the same way, that it's just, a lot of people are off the bandwagon and have been for a long time. I think a number of people kind of got reawakened with the idea that we were going to be good this year, but, we hired the wrong, the wrong coach. So
with that roster, I had you guys at 12-4. I didn't expect anything different.
Well, I mean, to be really 6-9 right now with the schedule that the Browns have had this year, it might as well be like, a 3-13 season. I mean, this is regression of the greatest order. And I'm sure that the coach will make excuses, and I've got one more to get this thing right. We're going to try to get it right, and, and all of that. I think that it's what it boils down to is, that's right, Rick. It's time for him to go. And if the organization doesn't see fit to that, it's time for me to go. And everybody's got to make their decision and choice as far as whether you spend money to watch this team. 2020, I'm looking to save a little money based on what's ahead as far as the economy is concerned. And, I can do without Sunday Ticket. I can do without the whole thing. You don't hear me talking about the Cleveland Indians during the course of baseball season very much at all. And you notice that the viewership dies when baseball season is on because nobody cares about that organization. We're just, again, you get a Francisco Lindor, and then he's gone. And you're just, now it's like, well, they're going to trade him now in the middle of the year, at the end of the year, when are they going to trade him? And, and you trade Corey Kluber for 2 spoons and a knife. I mean, this organization for baseball never going anywhere because they got no budget, and the Browns organization goes nowhere. They got no brains. And if you don't have anybody with any brains, there's
Insane
no
in the membrane.
But remember, Hugh Jackson went 1-31, and then they still allowed him to coach the first 8 games of the following year. So pitching to 6-9, or potentially go 6-10, even at worst case scenario, I don't see Jimmy Haslam pulling the plug.
Yeah, and how many people would sign up to be the head coach for the Cleveland Browns? With the mess that you're seeing, and this was a nationally televised game. Yeah. And you're watching players yelling and screaming at the head coach, and the one play where Lamar Jackson, he had Brown wide open. There was another bust in the coverage where there was nobody within 20 yards of a wide receiver. They're not following instructions. The players are lost, and they're blown away emotionally. It's too bad.
They're just playing half speed not to get hurt, like you always said.
And not only that, they're not prepared, and they make mental mistakes because they're not engaged. And these are all signs of bad coaching, because you cannot, year in and year out, acquire new athletes and have them do the same thing every year and quit. It doesn't matter. The low-paid ones, the medium-paid ones, the high-paid ones, they all quit. And the reason is they quit on the organization, because the organization from the top never changes. They hire coaches they can't communicate with. The owner is a meddler, and he's just gone quiet because his decision for head coach has failed miserably. And it's the same thing. I'll never forget what Jimmy Haslam said. He said, "I'm gonna be in that dog pound. I'm gonna be with the fans of the dog." Where in the fuck are you, you crook? They just lie. He's like a fucking politician. Just a liar.
Probably at flying days giving rebates.
Oh my God!
Well, Jimmy was sitting right in front of Jim Brown when they had that shot of the bust in Canton, and then they did the live shot of Jim Brown as they were panning out. Jimmy Haslam sitting right in fucking front of him.
No, I guess I'm tired of Jim Brown and Leroy Kelly and all that stuff. I'm so tired of hearing about Marion Motley and Lou the Toe Groza. And, I want to see good football today. And I don't need to see no superstars. I don't need LeBron James. I don't need that. I just want to see a team that's worth watching, that at least is really trying its heart out and doing everything that it can do. That's all I'm asking for, but can't get it. The coaches make the wrong moves and the players see it and they stop trying. It's happened for the last 20 years. It's happened over and over and over. Where in the middle of games, they just quit. And with our starting defensive line, with the second string defensive line, the third string defensive line, it doesn't matter. You bring in Demarius Randall as a veteran, he blows coverages. You ended up with 15 other defensive backs, they blow coverages. Doesn't matter who. It's the same thing. They give up. They don't pay attention to the people who are talking because they're just not worth listening to. It's just that simple. It's a sad thing.
Is everyone just going rogue and just doing their own thing?
Well, yeah, I think that the players just have tapped out. I'll give you the quote. If you didn't read the quote before the game, David Njoku again was left inactive for no explanatory reason. And they asked him what the team is basically, what the state of mind going in before the game. He goes, "We're going to keep playing until the wheels fall off." Do you need to hear more? I mean, these are players who talk to one another and they don't care. They're waiting for Freddie to get fired. You can't fire 53 men, you fire one. And so they figure, what the hell, there's a chance this guy's going to get shit canned. They're not playing for him, that's for damn sure.
Kind of like what they did with Hugh during the 0-16 season. Like
that's right.
Shows they're just losing to try to get rid of him.
Yeah, it's you know, and it is. The sad part of it all is that it isn't that the talent isn't there. The problem, first of all, is that your offensive line is poor. All right, that's the first thing. But I mean, before everything, the head coach is stupid and the play calling is poor. But the offensive line is not of a quality to be able to consistently do anything. The only reason we were able to run the ball in the beginning of the second half is that the Ravens just went into a pass stop zone defense with a lot of guys deep. So we were able to run the ball, but they were willing to give up the yardage, knowing that the second we had to throw the ball, that it would, they put the pass rush on, and that there would be, covered men and interceptions, turnovers, and all that good stuff. And again, Sheldon Redwine proved you can basically have the ball jammed up your ass and still not recover a fumble that's right in front of you. This is just the history of the organization. It's want to, there is no want to, and there's no want to for me to do these things anymore, to talk about this. There's no want to. It's all beaten out of me.
That was one of the highlights of the first half, was the Teddy Ruxpin fumble recovery.
Yeah, it's I don't even talk about the Bengals. Let the Bengals win. It doesn't make any difference. That's a game that it means nothing. You can't
even fight for draft position at this point. It's just a pointless game.
Yeah, that's right. And it's one that I'm not going to do anything about. I'm not going to talk about it during the course of the week. I'll find other things to talk about. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Hi, John Adams. How you doing?
It's almost like a preseason game leading into next year, isn't it?
No, there is no next year for me. Yeah, I don't know what I would call it.
Hey, but Mr. Moohead, you called it at halftime. Remember, during the halftime show, you called it. You said, we're down 14-6, and I'm going to call it like this. The Browns give up in the second half like they always do, and the Ravens will put up 34. You said 34, and they put up 31, so you were close. There's one field goal away.
Yep. I mean, and sitting here, I called touchdown passes to Andrews in the end zone. I was calling plays before they ran them.
Wow.
I was sitting there saying, okay, fake handoff, and, Lamar Jackson to the right. It's 3rd and 3. They always run that play. They run the play. He gets 6 yards. It's like, I don't have nothing left to say. It's just pathetic.
Hey, Mr. Moohead, if you see Otis's comment, make sure you pin it on here because it's hilarious. He said during the press conference, Freddie's going to say, I'm going to put this loss behind me. We're going to go 1-0 next week. It's hilarious.
Boy, I'll tell you, John Adams cannot get on the program. Oh, wait. Here he is.
Even Jake laughed at that.
Hey, John, are you with us? No, not yet.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, good. Why don't you talk a little bit? Because my disappointment is palpable. What do you see out here?
John?
Huh. Maybe he was flushed down the John. I don't know. Yeah,
I'm here now.
Oh, okay, good. John,
yeah,
so what's the
here.
story?
I can hear you wonder. Yeah, I didn't even
good.
watch. I came today. I went on a big nature walk.
Good for you.
You made the right choice.
Didn't hear any. Oh, right. For some reason, I'm hearing two things on a 7-second delay here.
Probably. Are you running a stream of the show? If you're running the stream, mute your YouTube stream. And just talk to us.
I figured it out. I have the radio. Yeah, I hear it now. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I went on a nature walk this afternoon. I didn't even bother watching this game because I just knew what was going to happen. But hopefully, this leads to Freddie Kitchen in Cleveland because I mean, he like Stephen A. Smith said, is it possible he could become a coach? Sure, but not with this group of players. They're too young and they're too inexperienced. I mean, you look at all the great teams back through the NFL. You have to have soul. You have to have swagger. The 70 Steelers had it. The 49ers didn't have that much soul in the 80s, but they had a lot of swagger. The Michael Irvin Dallas Cowboys definitely had a lot of soul and swagger, and definitely Ray Lewis and the Ravens had it. And Cleveland has not had it in so long. I don't think I've ever. I mean, I think the closest they ever came would probably be when Hanford Dixon and Minifield were and Hanford was all that defense. But really, I can say I've never seen that team have an identity.
Part of the problem here, and Cyprian, I have your comment up, and I'm going to, put this, and you know something, OBJ has made this gesture every catch that he has made this season. Okay, this, and no flag has been thrown any other time he did it, except when he caught the ball going out of bounds and he went like this. They threw a flag, so I don't consider that taunting. Okay, I consider that just they're setting a standard for the game, and they're not going to let that happen. I appreciate the comments coming from Tony regarding Freddie Kitchens, but again,
one thing, Mr. Muhead, I hope John Adams clarifies this. He said something about in last week's show that we were trying to put him on, is he was saying that back then in the NFL, it took 10 years to rebuild, but now you have to win today. And like a lot of people just don't have the patience to wait 5 to 10 years for a rebuild. And he was saying that it could take Freddie 5 to 6 years. Remember that comment, John, you said?
Yeah, I said, even if Freddie does have the talent to become a head coach, and I'm saying if here, I mean, it could take him 5, 6, 7 years. Look at Tom Landry and the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys come in expansion team in 1960. It took Tom Landry all the way up to 68 to build a very competitive team. So you're looking 6, 7, 8 years for him to build it. That worked in the 60s because, the financial situation was different. But now in the NFL, 3 years is about all you get. If you don't show any real progress after 3 years, it's done because it's a get it done now game today.
And I want to point something out because I think, and this is not sour grapes, because you know that I have been saying that the Ravens are the best team, and right now they're the best team in the AFC. But Lamar Jackson had better watch himself. When you start fucking around and waving the ball in front of people and tormenting people, yeah, you can outstep Takitaki. Absolutely. I'm not saying you can't do that. But you start allowing yourself to get hit, and, you want to stay in bounds, and so you take a crushing hit on the sidelines. Don't start believing your own press clippings too much, young man, because this game has a way of evening out. It's a dangerous fucking game. And I would not be you want to talk about taunting, I'd say going like this in front of a guy with the ball is taunting, just as more than this was. But the danger is to the player. It's not that a flag should be thrown. The danger is to the player. And if Lamar starts believing he's Superman and that nobody can hit him, all it takes is for somebody to guess the right way and hit him square on and crush his sternum, or he makes another one of his little quick moves and his ACL gives out.
And remember,
So be careful.
Remember the Chargers figured him out last year in that AFC wild card. Remember that. And they went in Baltimore and won. They shut the run down.
Yeah.
Just
You
take-
know.
What shocked
Yeah, but
me
he's-
was it
they've
was
got
a
they've got a
Go
great
ahead,
second
Jake.
half.
Jake first.
Yeah, what shocked me was it was a 16-point game, and they were still running Lamar, or Lamar still had the RPO, and he still kept holding on to the ball. And I did not get that. Where at that point you're already limping. Why would you even try to run the ball when you're up like that? And you already rolled your ankle earlier.
Yeah, doing it on their sideline wasn't smart. I mean, he's done it in the middle of the field. He's done it on our sideline. He did it on their sideline. But Sheldon Richardson, it's another issue. You can't be arguing with an official like that. I don't know what the story was with that, but veteran players losing their composure, it's just more of an indication that they're just unglued. It's and yeah, you had your hopes and dreams pinned on Freddie. Then I don't know, your future's in a mobile home, dude.
Yeah, in the middle of Oklahoma.
I want to address what Mark Jones said.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want said here he's been in a rebuild because they were never built. This is exactly what Terry Pluto said in his book about 10 years ago. He said that basically, if you really look at the Cleveland Browns from Cleveland to Baltimore, was a massive power play for the NFL, because what it did was it said the Cleveland Browns were in the top 5 of the most popular NFL franchises. And it said to all franchises, if your city does not give franchise everything you want, you can just pick up and leave, because if we can move the Cleveland Browns, we can move anybody. And after that, many new NFL stadiums were built as a result of the Browns moving to Baltimore. It's like, I don't know, something, I remember the number here, something like on the order of new stadiums. I think the only team that's playing in an old stadium that's even near the playoffs are the Buffalo Bills, built by 53, and they're up to get a new stadium, I think, eventually.
Yeah.
But if you really, Terry Pluto said Lerner got him, and they were coming. They didn't even have their scouting department set up and everything. And Al Lerner said, just postpone this to 2000 in the NFL. I think it was running the NFL then, said absolutely not. We allow 3 seasons without the Browns. You're in there right now, get it done. And they said we had to basically put together, basically like putting together a car with Bondo and put it together right then, and it's just been a collapse situation ever since.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good example of.
Now I want to ask
there
who do you think was worse in your opinion?
Who? What's between who and who?
I said, who do you think was worse in the situation, Jimmy Haslam or Randy Lerner? Kind of come down on Randy, only in the situation that Al seemed to be loyal to the franchise, but when he got that brain cancer, everything happened. And Randy Lerner was more focused on investment in soccer team over in England, I forget. And he just kind of just let it run itself. He owned, and all these general managers who basically seemed like they cleaned out and just kind of left him with nothing.
Well, if I were to say who's worse, I mean, it's like, what smells worse, cat shit or dog shit? Al Lerner was a minority owner of the Cleveland Browns, and for all those years, and not a football man, and it showed in the initial moves of bringing Carmen Policy and Dwight Clark into a situation where you're on the lake in cold weather and completely in a different culture, showed a complete lack of understanding of the environment of Cleveland and what it would require to win there. So right off the bat, the decisions that were made as far as management were really a mistake. And again, we tend to get people at the very tail end. You know, it's like Carmen Policy when he's more interested in vineyards than he is in football. Dwight Clark, who had a great catch, but never really had any pedigree as far as being an NFL executive. It is no different than what happened later with Holmgren. We get him when he just wanted to ride around and play big man in a golf cart and not involve himself with the things that he knew, which were coaching. And, so the Browns organization right off the bat, Randy Lerner is a trust fund child. There's a guy who literally, you can look at him and what limited opportunities you had to listen to him because he was camera shy, God only knows. He was autistic, I think. He didn't have any gumption whatsoever. And he ran away to England for tea and crumpets. Let's be honest about that. That was as much of an escape as it was anything else. I consider Randy Lerner the worst owner ever in the history of the NFL because he was not emotionally equipped to deal with everything that went with this. As far as dishonesty is concerned, Art Modell, horribly dishonest, and Jimmy Haslam, horribly dishonest. We've had a bad run of ownership.
Yeah.
And,
and this is the only franchise I know that in the last 20 years has gone through 3 different owners. Any other franchise done that?
The thing that's weird about it is I've watched ownership changes in Cleveland sports, and I watched Dick Jacobs purchase the Indians and turn them into a winner because he was willing to play the game and spend money, and he developed players in the minor leagues. And when we started getting guys like Alomar, in trades and getting Kenny Lofton in trades and giving up Ed Taubensee for him, and, when we started doing things that were, we got Tomey in the minor leagues, we got Joey becoming Albert Bell in our minor league system. We were developing young players in our system. You look at the Indians organization now, who is it that they really developed as a young player? Well, Lindor is fantastic. Jose Ramirez came out of nowhere. To be honest with you, nobody expected him to get to where he was. But besides that, Kluber by trade, Clevenger by trade. The thing that this organization was built on for the Cleveland Indians, pitching, none of this was really, with the exception of Shane Bieber, none of it was really homegrown. It was all happenstance through trade, like they're trying to do with Clace, the 99-mile-an-hour fastball thrower from Texas. You try to get guys through trades, but if you're not developing young talent, how long has it been since we had a real honest-to-God third baseman? You have to go back to fucking Matt Williams and Travis Fryman. I mean, you cannot have a hole in your developmental system. The same thing's true in football with the draft. You can't keep missing. You can't have guys like Randy Lerner who are in charge when they don't know anything. They're just a trust fund child. Jimmy Haslam is a truck guy who inherited that company from his father. He knows nothing about football and putting together a war room on draft day. He knows nothing about it. So comparing these owners, we haven't had a legit owner. Dick Jacobs was a legit owner. Once the thing moved over into new hands, the Cleveland Indians under the Dolans have been all about watching every nickel and dime. And you can't win that way in Major League Baseball. It may not be fair, but there's no crying in baseball. You either shell out the money or you suck. See the Pittsburgh Pirates,
Yeah.
If you're not willing, see the Florida Marlins, The second the billionaire got out of town, basically, and stopped spending money, they just turfed faster than you can imagine. The Browns don't have serious minds. And Dorsey is a serious mind, but they've surrounded him with nothing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna tell everybody that basically I was kind of reminiscing. And Stephen Rose is down there in Texas, so he understands a little bit of this, but I was going to explain this. in Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, especially this area, life revolves completely around football from basically the entire year. It never ends. Your high school, your college, your pro, and it's literally a never-ending. It's like a circle. I mean, the other sports are there. Circle never ends, and so it's like everybody's talking about when the NFL season's going to come up again. And so check when he came to Cleveland at the end of the 90 season, beginning of 90, he came into a pressure cooker where the season never ends, where they actually had to put police outside of his house at one point because they were afraid he's going to try to harm the Belichick family. I mean, that's just the way it is. This part of the country, everything is so obsessed with football to a point where it's almost insane. Now, Belichick goes to New England later, where in Boston area, the only thing they cared about for years was the Red Sox and the Celtics. The Patriots were an afterthought. That environment to build with a good owner and build up in an environment where the foot such a pressure cooker. And when he started to win, it was kind of organic from the ground up. But in Cleveland, it's such a pressure cooker. It takes a special kind of person to even survive in the Cleveland.
Well, and the other thing about ownership of teams, I mean, we've seen it all, in all the sports we watched. We watched, Ted Stepien, who was the worst owner in the history of the NBA in Cleveland. We saw Gordon Gund, who was really rescued by the NBA by, they were so happy that they found somebody who wanted to buy the goddamn franchise that they made sure that they found the right general manager, Wayne Embry, to jump in. They provided him. The NBA provided him with a gifted staff and with all those draft picks. And so by putting Wayne Embry, a qualified guy in, and all the ones and twos they had, they got the Dohertys, they got the Prices, they got the Hot Rod Williams, they got the Ron Harpers, and they were able to rebuild the thing quickly. But if you don't have the brain power, the brain trust in the organization, it's never going to happen. And, and for sheer muscle, I mean, Dan Gilbert put a lot of money into the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't particularly like the way that Dan does business, but be that as it may, without LeBron James, there's no title for the Cavaliers. Things did fall into the right place at the right time, and we did take advantage of the second and final window opportunity of LeBron's career. Now you see LeBron falling apart physically. If you haven't read, this is something that I talked about last year, is that no man is Superman playing those minutes. And now LeBron has a thoracic back problem. He's got a leg problem. And now he's missing games. And he said he wasn't going to miss any games this year. By the way, Ian, I wanted to put your comment up there so I could say to you, quack, 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 quack. All right, thank you. I still hate the Steelers. Nothing is going to ever change my mind.
And they lost to the Jets today.
And Mason Rudolph played, and God injured him. You see, Tony the Calf, if you're going to question the wisdom, here it is. You're going to question him. Don't fuck with him. All right? That's right. That's right, Bronk. Yeah. Don't fuck with this guy, Mason Rudolph. He's a fucking racist. And the bottom line is, he got back into the game because quack, quack, quack. All you little quackheads out in Pittsburgh, watch 2 more picks in 2 quarters by Duck, your guy. He was going to be a legend, wasn't he? Duck Devlin. Oh, Dirk Diggler. Oh, yeah, he's going to masturbate on the big screen. The Jumbotron. He's going to whip his dick out, what little there is. Well, you got it. You got Duck, and then you got Mason, and you lost. You lost to fucking Jets. You fucking lost. Fuck you. Okay.
And Mr. Bowie, not to mention the Titans now got the 6th seed and control their own destiny now.
Yeah, and
well, yeah. I got to say this. Belichick, I remember in the 90s. And I will say that as bad as these Freddie Kitchens offenses are, if you actually watch a Cleveland game, I tell you, I still say those early Belichick offenses were probably the worst I ever seen in my life. I mean, it got so bad, I just turned the TV off back then. I didn't even watch football for a couple years. I mostly became a Steelers fan after that and the reason why was because I just couldn't stand to watch Belichick because this was literally the thing. First down, you have the backfield, 1st and 10, hand off to Leroy Horde, 1 yard. Okay, second down. Testaverde or Kozar tries to pass over the middle, incomplete. 3rd down, handed off to Metcalf up the middle, lost 3 yards. And it was like this over and over. Belichick was constantly running the same plays. And then at the end of the game, they would ask him why he did it. And Belichick's like, well, I see some positive growth here. And there's some things going on. And I will tell you more as the weeks go by. And yeah. And that was Belichick's interviews and the Cleveland sports media. I think somebody would have shot him if they could. They could not stand Belichick. I used to think it was kind of funny the way he did interviews, but they would just scream about that.
No,
Does anybody remember how bad that was? How they screamed about Belichick?
But you have to remember, Belichick is coming off of winning a Super Bowl 10-9 over the Bills.
Really?
That's how he got the fucking job. He was the defensive coordinator, and before that, he was the linebackers coach, coaching Carl Banks and Harry Carson and Lawrence Taylor. He's Pepper Johnson. That's how Pepper Johnson got a fucking job in the NFL, because of Bill Belichick.
I remember all the great offensive coordinators. Remember Steve Crosby? That was one of Bing's sons. Yeah, I mean, bum up the middle. It went straight up the middle. I mean, that was Steve Crosby. Do you remember this one? God, it must be Dybul. It must be the shit in my eyes. I mean, and Brian, and Dayball is still out there. I mean, it's like I'm looking at just remembering the horrible offensive people that we've had, and now Freddie Kitchens. He's right there with them. Right there with them.
Mo Carthon was my favorite guy.
Yeah,
Mo Carthon.
Freddie Kitchens is bad. I tell you though, but I always remember how I think Eric Metcalf was drafted 8 or 80, I can't remember. I think his first year was with Bud. I remember. But I'll never forget when Belichick thought, for some reason, and all his offensive coordinators thought, Metcalf's this small, wiry guy. He thought he could run him right up the middle, and it would somehow
Metcalf up
fool
the middle,
the other team, this small, wiry guy. And I could never understand this. I would sit back there and say, he's going to get killed. This is an option player here, split him out to the side and pass to him out of the backfield or something. Don't run him up the middle. He's going to get killed. And every time they ran him up, I don't actually remember Metcalf gaining more than 2 or 3 yards up the middle. I just remember him getting smashed. Even wanted to stay in the NFL after that.
How about Arians? Arians didn't remember how to throw a screen pass when he was in Cleveland. I don't know what happens. There's something in the water. I don't know what the deal was.
Did they jump in the lake, Mr. Muad, the day of the game?
No, I mean, 20 years I've been, and that since this organization came back, been watching this horse shit, and it's like everybody comes in here, and I don't know, it's like they all lose their fucking mind, and meanwhile, you got the Ravens just throwing to running backs, and it's like the defensive coordinator can't figure out that you got to cover the receiver coming out of the backfield. It's just peculiar, and I don't know what it is. It's like guys who are famous for blitzing. Steve Wilkes, and I know you're familiar with him, Brian. He blitzed almost 48% of the time with the Cardinals, and it's down to 30 some odd percent now with the Browns. What happens? What happens to these people?
They can't cover on the outside so that he can blitz a safety or an extra linebacker. And he's trying to play this weird-ass two linebacker setup, and we don't have the defensive backs to actually play that kind of a defense. And he refuses to switch to a conventional 4-3.
Well, to me...
they traded away their best edge rusher in Jannard Avery for a box of donuts.
Well, the other thing that's really
And they're only
peculiar
crappy brains.
is guys who the busted coverages are just unbelievable. I mean, where a big rumbling tight end could go straight down the field and people just look at him. I mean, it's weird, and and we've been seeing this, and the bad shoddy tackling, and the and the penalties on every kick return, and I could just go on naming the things that we've seen for decades. And it never gets fixed. And Daniel is right in his comment. There is that, moment of every game where the players are going to quit because of the call being so stupid. And that was the moment of the week. And
that could be our Peter Ellis moment, or are we going to pick something
and there's
else?
There's no way to fucking audible out of it, because there's 4 seconds left on the play clock by the time he's ready to hike the ball.
Yeah. How can we say if Njoku is a bust or not?
When I look, sorry.
No, I just wanted to answer Daniel's point. How can we even say that Njoku's a bust? He came in the beginning
last year.
In the beginning of this year, this was his big season. He was going to prove himself. He's been hurt all year, and then when he got well, they didn't play him anymore. And they said the reason was because he didn't hold possession on the ball that was stripped out of his hands when he was on his back, and that Freddie Kitchens yelled and screamed at him and never played him again. No, it's not that he's a bust. It's that Freddie Kitchens is a bust. Now go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
Well, what I was going to say is it's kind of like if you go back to, I think it was 1961 when Modell bought the franchise. And at that time, you had Paul Brown here. There was kind of a split in the culture. Paul Brown, fashion, kind of paternalistic kind of type of man, kind of like he was the master and you were the student. And that Jim Brown coming up, he was a new kind of guy, new generation. Him and Paul Brown had a lot of clashes. So Jim Brown said later in life that he respected and loved Paul Brown, but their person times. But Modell relationship with Jim, Jim grew up part of New York, and after he fired him, they put him there, and later on, they kind of build a new situation. But here's what goes on. Doug Deacon later that Modell, basically from about the time Jim Brown retired, he developed this strategy towards players of always trading off his draft picks and instead picking up older veterans on the cheap. And he said, do this year after year, leverage the draft picks against them. And finally, all that leveraging, by the time they got Mike Phipps, everything just kind of, he said, we got to the point where all the talent was deleted on the team. And by 73, that was when the last Paul Brown player, Gene Hickerson, retires. He said, well, coming into the 74 season, we literally had nobody left in the building. I remember Deacon said, and we had no draft picks to recuperate. And ever since that strategy, which Modell had installed somewhere in the 60s, if you look, that carried through all the way to 95 when they left. Since they've came back, you've had all this horrible drafting, and it all comes down to it, but it's kind of like they've been in this same funk since the late 60s. Ask me why.
You got Olivia. Go ahead, Bronk. Go ahead.
The thing about Modell is that he was one of the cheapest and poorest owners in the NFL at that time. He had fucking zero money. And he got busted by that trade for Andre Rison, that broke the bank on him. He had no money. So he was doing it in such a way where he could get really cheap veterans, not pay draft picks who ended up being good, and still string the fan base along till we had to suffer through Forrest Gregg and Nick Scourge and all these other freaking assholes until we somehow lucked out and Ritigliano came in, as a fluke almost, and, developed Sipe. So, yeah, Modell was hideous. But we're talking about things that are literally 60 years old, and it's pathetic. I mean, the worst thing that probably ever happened to Cleveland was the fact that we ended up keeping our Browns colors and our Browns records and our Browns insignia and our no logo and all this shit that has just been saved up. Remember in the game today, that Lamar Jackson beat one of Vinny Testaverde's Ravens records. You know, well, what was he? He was a Brown 2 seasons ago. Vinny was
What a question.
Jackson and all that. We should just start from scratch with a brand new team.
Another thing is, when you are constantly going after veteran players, Olivier Vernon just never panned out this year because he was hurt all year. And the Lakers are going to see this with LeBron James, that they need him on the floor to win, but his body may not physically be able to. The loss to the Milwaukee Bucks, he was clearly not himself, and he was not shooting the ball well. He wasn't moving well. And when it's one thing to get a guy in his prime as a free agent, whether it's Kevin Durant or whether it's, Unibrow or whoever it is,
or like Miami did when you went there.
Yeah, I mean, to get a guy in his prime is one thing. But when you're trading off pieces for older players, it does become a problem.
Yeah.
And especially in football, and you understand why, running backs who are over 30, don't attract any attention anymore because it's just assumed their legs are shot. And it gets younger and younger for players, and it's all the more imperative.
A freak of nature.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it requires the ability to draft. It is the ability to retain your good players and then to draft well. And so that guys can step in. You've got to develop, Joe Thomas has come around once in a blue moon. But if you look at the guys who are really good offensive linemen for the most part in the NFL, they're not the Anthony Munozes. They're who are big-time college players. In a lot of cases, they're guys who maybe sat for 2-3 years behind somebody else, learned their trade, learned the way the game was played at the NFL level, and became really skilled at what they do. You have to have, and again, it's no different than when I was talking about in baseball. You've got to start, there has to be a reason why people are on your practice squad. There has to be a reason why there are people on the roster in the first place. And you can't be getting, Austin Corbett's if they can't play. I mean, that is what really started everything downhill for the offensive line, is that Dorsey gambled on a 33 pick who hasn't really amounted to anything anywhere and probably never will. So, again, you have to develop from younger players, and that doesn't mean first-round draft picks or second-round draft picks. It means fourth, fifth, and sixth round.
Corbett did actually play against the 49ers in their win.
Oh, okay.
For the Rams. So,
well, yeah, but how many snaps did he actually play? I mean, it's not like I'm not hearing about any of these guys really making a mark in the league. And believe me, it was wide open in Cleveland for the job, and he couldn't even do that. And you look at what's on the field now between Hubbard and Greg Robinson and all the people who are out on that field. It's really really bad. Little TYG asked me about Baker. I don't think Baker Mayfield is the problem. I think that there has to be. I saw. Odell Beckham chirping on the sideline, and Baker was standing there next to him looking the other way. I think he's tuned out, OBJ. I think OBJ's a pain in the ass. I think I'd rather see a Cleveland team without OBJ on the roster. And then they showed a quick cutaway of him leading chants in the crowd. And the chants that the crowd were chanting, if you didn't hear, was "Fire Freddie." And that quick cutaway of him going like this to the crowd, we're left now with the question: was he leading the crowd saying more? I don't know. That won't be reported. Won't be reported anywhere. But I found it very coincidental.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think what's amazing about this whole thing to me is all those we saw, all those Modell being such an honor, that when the team came back in '99, I think people had always thought that Modell was the problem. But then to see 20 years of the same Modell-like pattern repeated, only worse, it is kind of surprising. I mean, I don't think anybody that back then we thought when that all came back in '99, people thought, well, it's new ownership, new things, the same specter of all that, and yet the same specter hangs over it. Only it's worse.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Perplexing.
Over.
Yeah, I think it's a bad mix of players without leadership. And, when you have the Sheldon Richardsons going rogue on the officials and getting yanked out of the game, and then you have, whatever he was leading on the sidelines, but Odell was screaming and yelling, and people were just, you can see that people are just moving away from these players. And Baker Mayfield is not at all invested in this group of players. I think that's clear. Unfortunately, Landry, who's a legitimately good player, by bringing his friend OBJ into Cleveland, has poisoned the water supply within the organization. And now we're going to be left having to start all over again. And you wonder to what degree a guy like Rashard Higgins was poisoned, and what the situation, and he'll never play in Cleveland again, what the situation is with so many of these players. And you can't, Kaderil Hodge isn't going to be an NFL receiver. And the other guy, Damian Ratley, is not going to be an NFL receiver. Unfortunately, we're starting over again. And that is, what it is.
We've seen this story over and
I think OBJ.
Yeah.
OBJ has got to be literally the single worst wide receiver personality I have seen since Andre Rison. He hasn't even had his woman burn down his house. So I don't know. I mean, where's Lisa Left Eye Lopez when you need her? Well, sorry, she's
dismembered and beheaded.
Rest in peace, Left Eye.
Yeah. People don't realize that she was beheaded in that crash.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's what you get for sitting on the window seat in a bus that rolls over.
She was driving the damn thing, and the thing that was so weird is at the scene, the picture. I don't know if you saw the picture, but yeah, her body was dismembered because what happened? She was thrown through the side windshield. All right, through the side window, not through the front windshield, through the side window, because she was very petite. People don't realize how small she was. She went through the window and was thrown, and the vehicle then rolled on top of her and crushed her. Yeah, it was really bad. And the picture was a picture of one of her arms separated from her body, and it was called Left Arm.
Wow.
No, I'm kidding. I made that up.
I think I ever told you, Moohead. I forgot all through this conversation. You or Orlando Brown Sr. I knew his mother. I met her. School me and Orlando Brown's Junior's Myra. She was from Lake Charles, Louisiana, somewhere like that. And I swore that woman was into voodoo or something, because she had the spookiest woman I ever met. And she to me, she always came up and she this was one of the scariest people I ever met. Hanging hex signs or something somewhere, but she poor old he only lived to be 40. But I remember that era. Orlando Brown Jr. mentioned his mom. I was like, you know who I am now.
And Daniel, it did happen. It only happened near the rivers and the lakes that she's used to. She had to have it her way or no way at all, and she ended up moving too fast. It's just kind of the way it goes. All right. We're going to do a final word with all of our people here to summarize this season, because honestly, Jake, we'll go to you first.
Yeah.
What do you say, man? How do you look at this?
It's just disappointing. I don't see a correction. I don't see a reason why it could go so bad besides the coach. And I don't know how they fix it. So it's just a confusing one, right? I mean, I don't know where it's going to end up, and I hope it's fixed, but I don't know. It's not been fixed for 20 years. So
Yeah. All right. Now we'll go to Bronk. Bronk.
Well, the season was over in the fourth quarter of the very first game against Tennessee when we gave up like 30 points in the fourth quarter and had 3 interceptions. And then there were 1 or 2 false starts during the course of the season, like the first win over the Ravens. But the suspension of Myles Garrett just killed off the rest of the year. So after that Pittsburgh game, which we won, that was the end of all hope. And something just fell in the background off of my shelf here. So it's BCOD all the way. Get rid of Freddie.
All right, Steven?
This season has been much more than a disappointment. It's been sort of a nightmare. The expectations we had over the offseason, we've talked many times on your show. We had them at 10-6, double-digit wins this year. This was supposed to be the breakout year. They were supposed to make the playoffs. And then after that first game against the Titans, where the defense just completely dismantled the offensive line and sacking Baker Mayfield, forcing them to make bad throws, was just a sign of many more things to come. And even when the Browns had a slight momentum, then Myles Garrett's suspension happens, and it's just unfortunate. It's just an unfortunate and a disappointment. And what is going to happen is Freddie Kitchens will keep his job. I'm calling it because I know how Jimmy Haslam, if you see his track record with Hugh Jackson at 1-31, Freddie Kitchens is not 1-31. So Freddie Kitchens will coach at least the season next year, and then he will be fired after a 1-7 start or a 1-6 start, somewhere around there. And then we'll see a new regime change. Next year will be another wasted season. And then we probably won't see any new real regime until the following year of 2022. I'm sorry, I'm just calling it like I see it.
Wait, when I wake up in the morning or the middle of the night, what happened to my leg? Okay, I'm on the TLC tip, and I can't help it. But I don't know. Push it real good, Daniel. Push it real good. All right, Brian, you're next.
That was salt and pepper. Okay, pack your bags, kids, because it's going to be another 6-10 season. And then we're going to see another 20 or 25 brand new faces on the roster next year.
And they'll turn into car crash accident victims the week 1 of the season.
And we will end up with John. What is your final word?
Well, I think it literally is Groundhog Day because it's been the same thing pretty much with like 2 exceptions for the past 20 years. And I think that Ron Rivera would be a step in the right direction, but even then that step could be right. Brace yourself. At this point, it's up in the air. That's all in the air.
I don't see Freddie.
I think you could bring in the best coach in history, and I think it would still be the same thing.
I just don't see Jimmy Haslam pulling the trigger on Freddie Kitchens just yet. I just don't see it.
And maybe he won't. I mean, I don't see why, Mick, you'd feel that way. Monken's not going to be with the team anyway. And I'll tell you, a team would do well to hire Monken as a real honest-to-God offensive coordinator, especially one of the teams in the league who's looking to draft a young quarterback like a guy like Burrow, somebody like that, where there's a downfield scheme in place that Monken is familiar with, rather than this abortion of an offense that Freddie has just, dialed up ridiculous plays. As for me, it's a wasted season for the Cleveland Browns because you're either building or you're built. But if you're neither, you're dead.
Preach.
And the Cleveland Browns are not building because we've regressed. There are gonna be people leaving the building because we've regressed, and we aren't built because we never were building. So we start all over again. And so, Baker will be forced into an offensive scheme that is different 3 years in a row. And it's just an impossible thing for anybody to overcome. And the only thing you can do is have stability. The problem is that the owner of the team doesn't treasure stability, and he didn't have control of the men who were making racial comments within his trucking company and were recorded doing so. He didn't have control of his own employees because he was an absentee owner. And his management people were blatant racists, and they were saying things that were caught on tape. The bottom line is he's doing the same thing in Cleveland. He'll meddle around, but he really has no accountability in the whole thing. And it all starts from the top. So,
Mr. Mued, doesn't it remind you of like when you go to these local businesses, and they'll say under new management to try to like convince people to come back because it was a shithole before that? Then when you go back, it's just new faces, and the business is still poorly operated. The owner's nowhere to be found. He's dicking around somewhere else. He never shows up to his job, and it's the same thing over and over again.
yeah.
Taking records.
Yeah. Well, everybody, I want to say this. I'm not going to be here for halftime and postgame next week unless Freddie Kitchens is fired, which is not going to happen this week, folks. It's going to happen at the end of the year if it's going to happen. But I'm finished with this season just simply because I don't care what happens against Cincinnati. I really, honestly don't care. That's not a game that is even of any interest to me, and it doesn't say anything about the team. It says nothing at all.
And it's really doesn't even benefit to lose because there's no draft position at 5 or 6 wins. You're in the dead smack middle of the draft either way.
Yeah, I mean, there's for either team. Maybe Cincinnati just wants to salvage a second win for the season, but there's no reason for these players to want to play in Cleveland, want to come back to Cleveland. We're starting all over again, and I'll wait until the off season to see what happens, and then I'll decide whether I'm on board or I'm not. That's all.
If the Bengals draft Joe Burrow, doesn't that put Baker Mayfield under more pressure to have to perform better next year? I mean, and the Browns to keep up?
No. I think that Baker Mayfield just has to understand the offense. But remember, the wide receivers didn't, the running backs didn't. Nobody knew exactly how to block, how to line up. And there was no time for him by the time he lined them up because he knew where they were supposed to be. They ran the wrong routes. We saw another one today where OBJ was supposed to clear out an area, and instead he stayed too close, and Demetrius Harris was jammed in. They're running the wrong patterns. They're doing the wrong things. They don't know where they're supposed to be lining up. And there's no way to audibilize out of these horrible calls that are coming from the sideline. So I'm not going to sit there and throw this on Baker's lap and say, oh, there's pressure because of who's coming next in the draft. The pressure on Baker is having to play in 3 different systems, in 3 years.
I have to rephrase, will it put the Browns under more pressure if the Bengals draft what could potentially be another franchise quarterback?
No.
No. Oh, okay.
No, because if they retain fucking Freddie Kitchens, it's going to be another 6-10 season. So it's not going to matter.
I know.
I think unless
So for those that actually want to watch some really good football, there's 2 great teams that are going to be playing on December 28th. Go watch them. Clemson, Ohio State.
Speaking of Ohio State, Mr. Muhead, just one quick question. I swear I won't ask anymore. With the success that Ohio State has, and I know you've had your thoughts about the whole college football being rigged, and I agree with you to the most part that is the case. With Ohio State being as successful as they are, though, still, right? Does that put the pressure over Cleveland sports to perform better, like the Cavs, the Browns, and all that? Because
no, I mean, and without getting down on Ryan Day, because there's nothing bad for me to say about the guy, is that let's wait and see until his drafts, or I should say recruiting, takes place, because he's still living off of the fruit from Urban Meyer's tree. Sure. And until you start proving that you can bring in that kind of talent and have that kind of vision over time, there's no proof that Ohio State is going to stay good. How
is it so successful, though, as compared to the Browns and the Cavs, though, and the Indians? Yeah. Like, look how successful they are. Recruitment, everything.
Look, all I can tell you is this. All the bad years the Cleveland Cavaliers had, and 1.5 million people showed up to celebrate the championship, I don't think anybody has a problem cheering on a winner in Cleveland sports. But that's the bottom line. And it doesn't have anything to do with what's happening in Columbus. It has everything to do with what's happening in Northeast Ohio. And if the teams aren't winning, there's nothing to come out and cheer about. So, it is what it is.
Ohio State, though, can be so successfully repetitive and can build and have a organic build to their foundation. Like we talked about how Belichick did with the Patriots. Like, how did Ohio State so successful?
Yeah, now Derek is correcting me. The number 3 class this year, and it's Day's class. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
They still got to take the field.
Yeah, I mean, everything is, getting talent and then coaching talent. And, we saw Michigan fall off the rails under Rodriguez coming from West Virginia. We saw everything just fall off a cliff as far as for draftability. We saw it happen with Notre Dame, too. With just no longer the elite athletes going to that program. So, we'll see. I hope Ohio State continues to win. That would be wonderful, but I don't think it has any impact at all on Cleveland sports as far as professional sports. All right, I'm going to get out of here, and I'll be back on Monday's show, by the way, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then we'll continue doing Monday and Friday shows. And we'll talk on Friday about, maybe a little bit about what might happen in the last garbage game of the year. I'm just not wasting my weekend. But thanks to everybody on the panel. I appreciate it. John, thank you. Jake, thank you. Bronk, thank you. And Stephen, thank you. And Brian, always thanks. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you again tomorrow on the air. It's 6 p.m. Thanks a lot. Take care. Hasta la vista, Pastorheads. Good night.
Moo.
All right, Mark, take it easy.